to the Saturday Six, episode 5, which means we're in week 5. And the crazy thing about being in week 5 is we're already on and into some really big conference games for some teams that really we haven't seen play that many games yet, and that's what sort of seems odd about this season so far. I mean, of the many things, I don't know that you could point to one thing and say that's what seems odd about this season. Many things seem odd about this season, but the thing that strikes me as I was putting together the previews for these games is that in a lot of cases I have a really big game on the schedule, and these do happen. I mean, in conference play early, occasionally we will have a really big game early on, but to have Texas A&M and Alabama this soon, Georgia and Auburn, it just feels like we don't know quite enough about these teams yet. In the cases of the SEC squads, we're only talking about them having played one game. I mean, that's also true of TCU that we're going to cover today in the Big 12. We don't have a huge sample on these teams yet. Normally, by the time we get to some of these big games in conference play, we're at least talking about 4 or 5 games worth of what we've seen on them. Even if that does include an FCS game for some of these teams, you've definitely seen a little bit more, and they've worked out the kinks. You definitely, coming into this week, however, you have some questions still about, what is the final product going to look like? And I have seen a lot of, overreactions, I think, in a lot of ways, that what we thought was totally wrong. And we don't know that. I mean, it may be wrong. We don't know that yet, right? I mean, we don't know what Georgia's offense is really going to look like yet. We don't know that Texas A&M's offense is going to struggle the way they did last week against Vanderbilt. A little less sure. So I'm getting away with the quarter zip Arizona today. Arizona's not even playing yet, so no one can really accuse me of bias yet. As if like someone would create an entire math model just to bias it in favor of their team. And why would you do that for Arizona? Anyway, Arizona is where I finished up my undergrad. I'm excited to cover some of these games this week. We've got a good slate of Power 5 games for sure. The headline game for the Group of 5 was going to be App State and Louisiana this week. That's been postponed due to COVID. So that leaves us covering a game that I think is interesting because we are going to talk about 2 teams that we thought were going to be a lot better, at least on one side of the ball, than they have been thus far this season in Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. A game that really at the beginning of the original schedule I had circled as kind of one of the fun games that might be available is the Middle Tennessee offense against the Western Kentucky defense. Neither unit has showed up in the way that's been expected so far. So it'll be fun to preview that game as well. So this week we'll definitely know a lot more out of this week about some teams. I still wouldn't say we know everything that we're going to know about these teams yet, of course, after only a two game sample for the SEC squads and even some squads in the Big 12. But we will know a considerable amount more, and we will, be able to, even after next week, to start, in a couple weeks, we're going to be totally where the Bayesian weighting is out. As far as weighting against the projections are going to go, we will still, of course, because of the weirdness of this season, and it's unusual for Beta Rank anyway, to keep in recruiting and returning production and the prior year performance. Normally that doesn't improve the model, but I'm going to need touch points that actually rate all 127 teams playing against each other pretty well. So, the stream, arg. Anyway, we are. I'm excited to get to the game. So let's jump in to what we've got this week. So our first game this week is Alabama, Texas A&M. This is the headline game for me. A&M still comes in projected in the top 10, number 8 overall. They're coached by Jimbo Fisher. This is really a year we were expecting a lot out of A&M. They had a lot coming back. They've recruited really well. Fisher has definitely gotten the offense going a little bit thus far. And this was the year we were expecting the defense to take a step forward under Mike Elko. Of course, Alabama, coached by Nick Saban, projected as the number 1 team in Beta Rank coming into this season. We get the Alabama offense here, coached by Steve Sarkisian, new quarterback Mac Jones. They had a pretty good outing last year against Missouri. Missouri's got a good young defensive coordinator that I would keep an eye on for potential head coaching or bigger jobs at the end of this season. Eli Drinkwitz kept him on. I'm forgetting his name, of course, at the moment. It's Ryan something. But this Alabama offense has been really good so far. Really good throwing the football. Their explosive drives number is the one that really stands out, along with their drive efficiency. Against Missouri, they had a little bit of trouble with the negative drives. Keep, grain of salt on these numbers. This is one game's worth of data with no weighting for the beta rank metrics below the overall offensive and defensive numbers. The defense for Texas A&M, they did a pretty decent job against Vanderbilt last week, coached by Mike Elko. They were better at containing explosive drives. They're really going to have their hands full with this Alabama offense. Mac Jones looked pretty good thus far. I mean, I don't know that you're going to get to Tua levels. I don't know that you're going to have to this season unless you're maybe playing Clemson. So, but I would keep an eye out for how Alabama and A&M perform in this game. Alabama for what their really for both teams, what their season aspirations are. A&M to really challenge in the SEC West. In order to do that, they need to really show up here against Alabama. Alabama, if you want to compete for a national title, I mean, it's likely, given the way the craziness of the season might work out and the way things are going in the Big 12, that, one loss is not going to hurt them. But, for a national title aspirations, you really need to see them show up and win by, 2 touchdowns. That's what Beta Rank projects this nearly as. On the other side of the ball, the defense for Alabama projects at number 6. They were number 8 last season under Pete Golding. A little bit of a disappointment for them. They need to continue to improve on this side of the ball if they want to contend for a national title, as well as really picking up their special teams from where they were last season. They kind of struggled last week in their drive efficiency number. You might expect them to pick that up this week. On the offensive side of the ball for A&M, really struggled last week. Kellen Mond didn't have a great game against Vanderbilt. They're going to have to pick it up on their drive efficiency number in particular. Decent running the ball last week, but they're going to have to pick it up passing. I mean, this A&M offense in particular, and Jimbo Fisher's your play caller here, they have to show up this week against this Alabama defense. This isn't something that they can just, they do need to beat that number in the projection, I think, for A&M to really meet some of where they want to be this season, because really for them, finishing second in the SEC West, I think would be a really good sign for them and where Jimbo Fisher wants to take this program. Anything less than that is going to hurt, this year. I mean, I think A&M, you really, even with the eligibility quirkiness and that they may bring back a lot of guys, again, they need to cash in this year and really finish second in the SEC West with LSU where they are, and really A&M already having a 1-game head start on them. And Auburn really not projecting to be, in this same class. A&M needs to solidify their hold on the second spot here. They could do that by playing Alabama close. And that on its own would be a little bit of a confidence boost, I think, for them. Moving on. I'm running behind. I got my move on sign already saying. The Old South's deep, the Deep South's oldest rivalry. That's what it is. Georgia's playing at Auburn. This game should be fun too. The Georgia offense really struggled in the first game. They're still coached, of course, by Kirby Smart, Auburn by Gus Malzahn. But the offense really struggled, and some of it is, figuring out, who's going to be the quarterback. Jamie Newman opted out. He was really their best option coming into the season out of Wake Forest. The transfer, JT Daniels, however, the USC transfer, former, all-world 5-star recruit, has been cleared from his knee injury that he suffered back at USC to be able to participate this week. Expectations, I mean, I would expect to see him this week. They had some, quarterback, they had a little trouble last week too. Stetson Bennett ended up really finishing the game out for them. Had a decent week. Todd Monken is the new OC at Georgia, so he's got to get this offense going. The defense projects to be excellent, and they played well last week. Seeing that they can, get it going against an Auburn defense that had a really good, week on paper last week. I mean, aided by 3 Kentucky turnovers, but Kentucky was, more efficient offensively than showed up in the, in the final score. Put up a lot more yards than Auburn. It's a little bit of a mixed bag. I don't expect Auburn's defense. They were excellent last year, finishing number 4 in beta rank under Kevin Steele. I do expect a little bit of a fall off. This Georgia offense, we'll see though. I mean, Auburn's still got a good defense, even though they they got a little luckier last week than good. Then they were still very good, and getting to see them against this Georgia offense, I think is going to be a real test for them. I'm excited to see this. Georgia's going to have to get some, more going in the passing game, get the running game going, which also really kind of fell off last year. Their zone running didn't work as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the other side of the ball. This one's a little tougher. I mean, Georgia projects to have the number 1 defense in college football, Aaron Bederink. Dan Lanning is their defensive coordinator. Chad Morris is the new OC at Auburn. A lot of people were pretty excited about what they saw out of them last week. That's somewhat true. I mean, they had a decent game in particular throwing the ball against a pretty good Kentucky. I mean, not a great Kentucky defense, but a pretty good Kentucky defense. I think this will be an interesting one to watch here because you're going to get to see Bo Nix really get tested. And he, the hype really outpaced his play last season. This Auburn offense, for Auburn to, overachieve their expectations, has to get back into the top 10. They weren't really that good last season. So for Bo Nix and this Auburn offense, this is going to be a huge challenge against Georgia here. A team that really does, brings a ton back, hasn't had opt-outs, was projected to be the number 1 defense in beta rank. I really expect this Georgia defense to have a good week this week against Auburn. And I would expect, beta rank has Auburn or Georgia with a 78% win probability. That's it's a little over 1 touchdown at on the road. Auburn, if they get turnover luck again, it could easily win this game. This game should be relative. Even with an almost 80% win probability, things that happen 22% of the time are not rare, right? That's 1/5 of the time. If you flip a coin 5 times, or a bunch of times, but 1/5 of the time it's going to come up Auburn. So excited to see this game. This game's the late game on ESPN. Definitely tune in and check this one out. This game should be fun too. I'm excited to see this TCU unit again, team again. They had an uneven game against Iowa State last week. And Gary Patterson, one of the best TCU in no way should be as, if you just look at the athletic department budget, size of the school, it's hard to see how they are so competitive. They're very competitive, particularly. They punch above their weight in a lot of ways because of Gary Patterson. They get to take on Tom Herman, who did a total staff makeover last season. The offense for Texas, we still project to be very good. Number 6 overall, Mike Urich is the new OC coming over from Ohio State. They've had some really good numbers. They haven't played anybody great on the defensive side of the ball yet. So keep an eye out for that. UTEP and Texas Tech are not world-beating defenses. Texas Tech gave up quite a few points to Houston Baptist, which is, fine. Houston Baptist has a pretty fun little offense going. But on the other side of the ball, we project TCU's defense to be better. This is where Patterson really hangs his hat. They didn't have a great week last week. They had a decent week. They didn't have a great week. They weren't as good as maybe we would have expected against a good but not great Iowa State offense. And an Iowa State offense that really struggled in their first game against a brand new play caller, at Louisiana. I'm interested to see how this, in particular, this TCU defense shows up and shakes out in this game on this side of the ball. I think if you're a Horned Frog fans, there's going to be a lot of focus on what the offense does, but keep an eye on this defense too. They didn't actually blow it out of the water last week. So, seeing if they can really turn it around and play a little more Gary Patterson football against what is going to be a really good offense for Texas in all likelihood is definitely something to keep an eye on if you want to know how this Big 12 race might shake out and how TCU might play into it. On the other side of the football, that TCU offense, a lot of this is still projection. They've only played one game, to this point. So, Sonny Cumbie is the OSC there. Max Duggan only got to play one half really, for some reason. They were a lot better with him in. The offense looked like considerably better with him in. So keep an eye on whether, with him likely playing this whole game, whether they're able to get more going offensively. Texas, there's still a lot of projection weight in here with this projection at number 10. This defense has stunk. There's no two ways to put it. They stunk last week against Texas Tech. Is that the real Texas defense under Chris Ash? Some of these numbers here, these explode. Like you can see that the weighting is really struggling too with a very small sample. or the non-weighted numbers are really struggling with a very small sample, I would throw all of those out right now. Because for what we've seen again for Texas against that Texas Tech offense last week, we just saw a real struggle. So it'll be interesting. This game will also be a good measuring stick because I think TCU, even if they are very improved off of where they were last year, or very improved versus the projection, we're not talking about a world-beating offense. I mean, you could say with Texas Tech, that you believe Neil Brown's going to get the offense. Oh, wait, Neil Brown's the coach at West Virginia. Oh, geez, it's I can actually picture he was the head coach at Utah State. Not going to come to me anyway. The we expect them to have a pretty good offense. Yost is their offensive coordinator. You expect them to get it going. TCU, I think even improvement gets them to like a middle of the road Power 5 offense. That's a big improvement for them. This Texas defense, if they're giving up 28, 30 points to an offense in that range, that's going to be trouble for them throughout the whole season. Big time problem. Their counterparts at the top of what we expect to be the Big 12 race, the Oklahoma Sooners. This game is serious trouble right now for Oklahoma in a lot of ways. Lincoln Riley comes in coaching against, Matt Campbell. Iowa State hasn't been great up to this point. They lost their opener to Louisiana. They had a little bit of an up and down game against TCU in their own right. They have to really get their defense and offense going, I think, to a higher level than they played up to this point to achieve what they want for the season. Sure, their loss came out of conference. That's an advantage that they have over Oklahoma right now. Oklahoma really likely can't afford another conference loss this season. Their offense has looked pretty good so far. I mean, they definitely were able to move the ball against Kansas State, but there's definitely, I think, still room for improvement for them. This Iowa State defense will be projects to be about as much of a challenge, I think, as that Kansas State defense really was. Oklahoma should be able to move the ball and put up points here. Keep an eye on how they've been pretty effective throwing the ball thus far. Keep an eye on it because that Iowa State defense has been a little bit better against the run. They've struggled a little bit against the pass. Rattler could have a big game today and really move the ball and put up some points. On the other side of the ball, we've got an Oklahoma defense that we projected to be better. I say that I'll still stand up and say I think Alex Grinch is a really good defensive coordinator. I think what he did at Washington State is one of the best jobs that an ADC has done in college football in the last couple of years. I expect that he will still get things turned around. Ooh, boy, do they not look good thus far. And they were bringing a decent amount back. This is really where Oklahoma's season and really, the program is going to turn, is whether this defense can get it going. Like I said last week, they really struggled against in a lot of ways, pretty pedestrian Kansas State offense, last season. We didn't project to be great coming into this year. Iowa State, their offense, was a little uneven last week. They've been decent. They're a little better running the ball right now than they've been throwing the ball. They really need to get Brock Purdy going. He's one of the best the best quarterbacks in college football the past few seasons. He's really got to get it going more than he has up to this point. And this will be an interesting one to see. Tom Manning's the OC at Iowa State. They brought him back. The expectations that he will improve things. So this matchup here is going to tell us an awful lot about where we should be slotting Oklahoma in the Big 12 race. If we really think that, Texas doesn't look world beating. They look really vulnerable on the defensive side of the ball too, with their changeover to Chris Ash. Oklahoma, they look as vulnerable, and suddenly the Big 12 could be really wide open if neither of these teams can play defense. That really opens the door for someone like Oklahoma State if they can continue to figure it out, or someone else, including maybe the Cyclones, if they can start to put it together. In this game, Oklahoma's got a 74% win probability. Oops, that's the one we just did. Back to the SEC, Ole Miss at Kentucky. Lane Kiffin going to visit Mark Stoops. This game should be a lot of fun in a lot of ways. I'm really excited. I mean, in some ways, like this Kentucky offense with three turnovers last week. I mean, they had a really and then they also just had a touchdown just taken away by the refs and just a terrible call at the end of the half. Kentucky played a lot better than that final score showed. With that, I think, that bodes well coming into this game against Ole Miss. That Ole Miss offense looked pretty fun against Florida. Florida, we did expect to have a pretty decent defense this year, but on the defensive side of the ball, they really struggled last week against Florida. I think that this week could be a tough test because Kentucky was reasonably balanced last week. Having an actual QB back and not having to run the Wildcat, I think, is a big win for them. They still have a really good offensive line and running game. This is going to be a challenge for this Ole Miss defense, coming in under DJ Durkin. I think Eddie Grand does a good job with his Kentucky offense, and I think that they will continue to play well. And if you don't have the turnovers and you don't have the refs against you, you can really put up some. I mean, I think they'll be good. I think this week is the week that they'll bounce back, in particular on this side of the ball, and the scoreboard will reflect more of what you see in the stat sheet. On the other side of the ball, the Kentucky defense, Auburn's got a lot of talent. Bo Nix certainly, I think, you could argue, has made a little bit of a step forward. The versus where last year, and I think Chad Morris has opened things up a little bit for them. But they had a decent week last week. I mean, you certainly when you were handed three turnovers when your offense has three turnovers, you're going to get stuck with some tough field position sometimes. So for Kentucky here, I expect them to continue to play pretty well. This Ole Miss offense is going to be a challenge. Matt Corral played really well last week, actually. And I think if Kiffin and Jeff Lebby, their offensive coordinator, can really continue to develop and get this Ole Miss offense going, they have a shot. I mean, anytime you can play great offense in college football, you can cover up a lot of warts that you might have in special teams or defense. Ole Miss could do that in this weird year that we're going to have this year. And I think build a lot of momentum, even if they're not necessarily winning games, if the offense is, chugging along. I think it'll give Kiffin, something to work with as far as goodwill in the fan base. I would keep an eye on. They were really able to throw the ball well last week. Do they try to run the ball established? They were behind quite a bit, playing from behind a lot last week. So I am interested to see where this run offense is, just because Jeff Lebby comes out of that Baylor spread them out to run. They're playing Corral because Corral's the better passer. And that opens up, that part of the offense and keeps them a little more balance. Isn't necessary, but it does keep them a little more balanced. If you can do it, is nice to have. However, I mean, people say you need to be balanced, for balance's sake. It's nice to be balanced because it opens up a lot of options for you. You don't have to be. You could, do whatever gets you points on the board. But, Kiffin may like to throw the ball a little more. Lebby and Kiffin has also hired. This is his second. He also hired Art Briles' son previously. He's definitely hired as out of this Baylor coaching. The Art Briles coaching tree before. And it's worked well when he's been able to run the football. It worked well for them at FAU with Kendall Briles there running the football. I'm interested to see how well they run the ball in this game in particular. So keep an eye on that. In this one, we've got Kentucky with a 70% win probability. It's a tight game in the projected spread here. So, Kentucky doesn't have a lot of room for error, even at home. They better not turn the ball over like they did last week if they want to win this game. Off we go to Murfreesboro, Tennessee, a place I have been many times. So we get the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers at Middle Tennessee. We have this should be. I am excited for this game. Tyson Helton, Clay Helton's brother, is the head coach at Western Kentucky. We got Rick Stockstill, who's been at MTSU for a while. It feels like as the head coach there. This side of the ball here that we're looking at right now was not the matchup that I was excited about all year. or, all off season. The Western Kentucky offense has struggled. They had a better week last week against Liberty, to really help out a bit. But I had questions coming into the season, about Pigrome, the Maryland transfer. He didn't play really well, at Maryland. He played better last week. He had a really, really rough outing his first week. We'll see. This Western Kentucky team does need to get the offense going, regardless of whether the defense can really turn it around. I want to see them really able to do that, on this side of the ball. I don't know that we came in with huge expectations for this Middle Tennessee State defense. They have struggled for sure the last couple of years. Scott Schaefer's your DC here. This, this side of the ball, it will be interesting to see if Western Kentucky can kind of put it together, and continue to put together against what should not be a great defense, over here. The other side of the ball, though, was the one that, I was really thought would be kind of a fun matchup coming into this season. Western Kentucky's defense projected really well coming into this year. Clayton White is their defensive coordinator. He has some good, experience at the Power 5 level. He has a lot coming back off a defense that was very good for the Group of 5 last year. Man, they haven't lived up to it. I mean, Louisville's a tough out. They have a good offense going under Scott Satterfield. That was really the engine of their turnaround last year. They, for Western Kentucky, though, they went out and they struggled against Liberty. Sure, Hugh Freeze is a decent offensive mind. I don't want to take away from that, but I really expected more out of this, defense coming into this year. And I think they're going to have to really turn it around here. I was talking about Clayton White last year as a guy that you should really keep an eye on. If you have a Power 5 opening, he's a guy that you should maybe think on bringing in. I don't know. I mean, he's really got to turn it around coming into this, man. But the Middle Tennessee offense, I mean, Tony Franklin's your offensive coordinator. He had some really good experience at the Power 5 at Cal. Really well thought of guy around offensive circles in college football. They brought back a lot coming into this season, including the quarterback, Asher O'Hara. I was really expecting this offense to be a lot better than what we've seen so far. They had a better week last week, but they really got to get this going. Asher O'Hara had 2 interceptions last week. They got to cut down on the turnovers. They got to play a lot better. You can't be, both of these teams has really failed to live up to their expectations so far. Middle Tennessee lost to UTSA last week. They got to get it. I mean, they got to get it going. O'Hara's got to get it going. Franklin's got to get it going. So this was what I thought was going to be one of the premier matchups of the Group of 5, at least unit wise, maybe not team wise, but unit wise, getting to watch this offense and this defense in the same field. A lot of the shine is off of this. However, I still think it'll be a lot of fun. Clayton White, getting, and both of these units, I think, still have the opportunity. It's been a small sample size to shine more and play better. So keep an eye out for this game. It'll be right at the dinner hour or 5. I mean, nobody eats dinner at 5, even with the toddler. We don't even eat dinner at 5 with a 4-year-old. But I mean, I say that there are some people getting the blue plate special that are, is it the blue plate special? I don't know, that are, the early birds. They're probably dinner around 5. So this game will be on ESPN 3. Put it on your tablet. Keep an eye on when Middle Tennessee has the ball. That should be, the more fun to watch. Although you say that, and the other side of the ball, because those units are fairly evenly matched, might also be a lot of fun too. So let's wrap it up. So week 5, coming into what is in a lot. I mean, it's crazy to in a normal season, right? We would maybe just be getting ramped up with some of the big. Just be getting ramped up with some of the big conference games. It feels like in this truncated schedule, we're gonna have some teams with some losses, that we were expecting to be contenders by the time we really figure out who they are. That feels a little different in college football, for sure. Not that you do, like I said, not that you don't USC and Stanford seem to play early in the year every year. There are definitely games that end up getting scheduled early in the year. That Miami Florida State game, not that they've been contenders for anything of late, but is another game that almost always gets scheduled early in the year. when teams, you're still, mileage may vary on what you think a team's going to be and what they actually are. It also may vary on what they are right now versus what they may be at the end of the season. This, getting to see some of these games right now, and it feels like, it feels like a lot of takes, including some of my takes, right, are already like on the table, beta rank and a lot of projection, systems, as well as a lot of voters that had high expectations about Texas A&M this year. Like that's going to get tested this week. The expectations for what Georgia's offense could be, that's going to get a big test this week for sure. And we all had questions about Georgia's quarterback situations. Man, that's going to play out, live. They're going to do it live. Because JT Daniels, I watched a lot of JT Daniels from his freshman year at USC. He had some growing pains, for sure. And he didn't lose that job to Keaton Slovis by accident. Slovis was really better able to execute. Daniels had a penchant to, sit around and look for the deep ball as a true freshman. A lot of people make a lot of progress as true freshmen. The one thing that you could say about Daniels is the questions about him were not necessarily accuracy. So if he can, and if he has, absorbed a lot of what's going on with Monk, and he has a shot, I think, to really, really improve. So I also don't take what you saw for someone's true freshman year as gospel. People improve, of course, and get better. I'm excited to see, if Daniels really is able to put it together, then Georgia's really a dangerous team, because this defense could be very, very good. So, yeah, those are the 6 games that we're going to be keeping an eye on all the games at Sharp College Football, but these are the 6 games that, I would say we're most excited about, including the group of 5 game that we previewed. So, keep an eye out for those. Thank you so much for tuning in. As we're on week 5, this is the 5th episode of this. Can you believe that? So we're excited to keep doing this and keep bringing you more college football. It's already October. You're going to blink and the Big Ten's going to be there. We have all the Big Ten preview videos up at sharpcollegefootball.com, as well as on the YouTube channel. You can also find the Pac-12 videos getting ready for the Pac-12. They won't be starting, of course, until November. But the Big Ten is going to be starting soon. The Mountain West, is targeting, the Mountain West is also targeting an October start. The MAC's now going to be playing. So everybody's back. It's like, welcome back college football in a lot of ways. Pac-12 schedule is going to get released today. They really should have gotten that out during the middle of the week, but it's going to be, so if you're watching game day or, college, Fox's, run up to their big noon kickoff, keep an eye on what the Pac-12 schedule is going to be, particularly the cross-divisional games and whether those count towards, the divisional championships there. But I'm excited for all. I'm excited to see all of this. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Let's do some, that's not it. This is it. You can find all the stats you just saw and a whole lot more at sharpcollegefootball.com. I'm Rob Bowron, the econometrician, mathlete behind Beta Rank. You can find me at Beta Rank FB. I also handle the tweets from at Sharp College Football. We have a Pac-12 podcast at 12 Pack Radio. And you can find all the back episodes for that at sharpcollegefootball.com/12 Pack Radio, where we're going to be running through a lot of the previews for the Pac-12, getting ready to go for that. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your time. We'll see you next week. And tweet us any of your thoughts at Sharp College Football, or tweet me at Beta Rank FB if you have any thoughts on how the games are going to go this week. So again, thank you and see you next week.